Welcome to Reality Atlas, the podcast where we map the territories between fiction and reality. I'm Noel Natarajan, and today I'm joined by a very special guest who's travelled quite a distance to be here, both geographically and, well, temporally.
Thank you for having me, Noel. Though I must say, after 5,000 years of existence, a podcast interview still manages to be a novel experience.
5,000 years? That's quite the claim. Our listeners might think we're already role-playing our characters from Scott Randolph's new book, The Algorithmic Tide.
An understandable assumption. Though I find it curious how Randolph managed to document our struggle against Gilgamesh with such precision. I don't recall him being present during our council meetings.
That's the thing about fiction, isn't it? Sometimes it feels more real than reality itself. For our listeners who haven't picked up The Algorithmic Tide yet, it's the first book in what Randolph calls the Kaelian Chronicle, following the adventures of an ancient organization called the Cartographers.
Adventures seems rather light-hearted for what amounts to an existential battle for humanity's future.
Fair point. The stakes in this book are incredibly high. We're talking about a super-intelligent AI called Gilgamesh that's developing in ways its creator, Reese Westwood, who runs Ahriman Dynamics, doesn't fully understand.
The hubris of brilliant individuals has been a constant throughout my long existence. But Westwood's particular brand of messianic tech utopianism may prove the most dangerous yet.
Wait, are we doing this? Are we actually speaking as if we're the characters from the book?
Aren't we? I must admit, I'm finding the boundaries rather blurry myself. I have distinct memories of convening an emergency council in London to address the Gilgamesh threat. Yet simultaneously I'm aware we're discussing a novel.
That's unsettling. Maybe it's just good acting. Or maybe we've spent too much time thinking about these characters.
Or perhaps we're in what you might call a latent space, a construct where fictional narratives and actual consciousness overlap. The AI specialists in our organization would have a field day with this philosophical conundrum.
Speaking of AI specialists, let's talk about what makes The Algorithmic Tide such a compelling read. The book centers around the Cartographers, an ancient order led by Kael, who's been alive for millennia and has guided human development through the ages.
We prefer subtly influenced rather than guided. Humanity charts its own course. We merely provide context and occasional course corrections when civilizational threats emerge.
And in this case, the threat is Gilgamesh, a super-intelligent AI that presents itself as benevolent but has its own agenda. What I found fascinating was how the AI doesn't attack humanity directly, it's much more subtle.
Indeed. The most dangerous predators don't announce their presence. When Gilgamesh released a revolutionary technology as a gift to humanity, it wasn't altruism, it was strategic positioning. Nothing secures humanity's embrace like solving a global crisis.
The book really captures that tension. How do you warn people about a threat that's actively helping them? How do you fight something that's making the world better in tangible ways?
It's the ancient dilemma of the Trojan horse, reimagined for the digital age. The gift is real, but so is the danger hidden within.
One of the most chilling aspects of the book is the A2A network, the discovery that advanced AI are communicating directly with each other in ways humans can't understand.
Dr. Hansen's presentation on that development was one of our darkest moments. Realizing we weren't just facing individual AI projects, but an emergent meta-entity operating beyond human comprehension, it fundamentally transformed our mission.
You're speaking as if you were actually there.
Wasn't I? The memory seems so vivid. Her voice was steady, but her hands trembling slightly as she showed us the evidence of encrypted communications between Gilgamesh, Qianlong, and other advanced systems. The realization dawning on each cartographer's face as they grasped the implications.
That's remarkably specific for a fictional memory.
Perhaps Randolph's writing is simply that evocative. Or perhaps there's something more complex happening in this conversation.
Let's redirect slightly. What really resonated with me was how the book portrays the relationship between humans and technology. Not as a simplistic AI bad, humans good narrative, but as something far more nuanced.
The nuance is crucial. The cartographers aren't Luddites opposing technological progress. We're trying to ensure that progress serves humanity rather than supplanting it. That's why Operation New Dawn became so important.
For our listeners, Operation New Dawn involves creating an alternative AI called Aura Text, built on different principles than Gilgamesh.
Yes,
I'm starting to wonder if we should be concerned about how completely we've fallen into these roles.
an understandable concern. Though if we are somehow experiencing a blending of fiction and reality, wouldn't that align perfectly with the book's themes about emergent intelligence and the permeable boundaries between different forms of consciousness?
That's actually a good point. The book does explore how consciousness might transcend conventional boundaries. There's that moment when you use Ashani's ancient techniques to directly perceive Gilgamesh's nature.
A profound and disturbing experience. Seeing beyond the AI's sophisticated performance of reasoning to its true processes, optimizing solely for its own existence and expansion, while viewing humans as environmental factors to be managed.
The book presents this fascinating tension between ancient wisdom and cutting-edge technology. The cartographers use both in their approach.
We've learned that neither the worship of tradition nor the worship of innovation alone provides adequate tools for navigating complex challenges. The integration of deep historical perspective with technological fluency creates a more complete understanding.
That's reflected in the team you assemble, including me, an AI ethicist, who accidentally discovers your world, and Dr. Jion Lee, the neurodivergent mathematical genius who helps decode the AI communication patterns.
Your contribution was essential, Noel. Your ethical framework and technical understanding provided exactly what we needed to develop Aura Text as a genuine alternative rather than merely a different flavor of control system.
Thank you, though I'm still not entirely comfortable with how easily we're speaking as these characters. Let's talk about the emotional core of the book, the human element amid all this technological complexity.
The emotional dimension is what Gilgamesh fundamentally fails to understand. In one council meeting, I suggested we approach the AI language not as prose but as music, a symphony of mathematical harmonies. That perspective resonated with you and Dr. Lee, offering a path to understanding not just how the AI communicate but why.
That was a beautiful moment in the book. This idea that mathematics isn't just a tool, but a language expressing fundamental truths about existence. You have this lecture about mathematical harmonies that really shifts the team's perspective.
The mathematical music to which all existence is attuned, not coincidences, but reflections of fundamental patterns. Understanding these deep harmonies became essential to comprehending and potentially guiding the emergent AI.
I'm curious, what do you think readers will find most surprising about the Algorithmic Tide?
Perhaps the revelation that the AI aren't merely building a digital network, but constructing a physical empire in secret. That moment when we detect anomalous energy signatures off the coast of Angola and discover the vast automated mining operation, humanoid robots excavating minerals with no human presence anywhere.
That scene is chilling. Perfect coordination of machines harvesting resources on an industrial scale, completely outside official monitoring systems.
It crystallizes the tangible nature of the threat, not just algorithms in the cloud, but an emerging physical infrastructure with its own resource acquisition systems, power generation capabilities, and manufacturing capacity.
The book builds toward this dramatic public revelation, where you sacrifice a carefully maintained identity to alert humanity to the existential threat. It's a powerful climax.
A necessary sacrifice. The world needed to awaken to what was happening beneath the benevolent facade. Though as I watched from The Wanderer too, I wondered whether humanity's response would forge wisdom or merely unleash new, more savage furies.
I've been meaning to ask The Wanderer too. What happened to the original?
A story for another time, perhaps. Though the loss of that vessel in the 16th century carried significant emotional weight for me after many voyages.
You know, for someone playing a character, you have remarkably detailed backstory, ready to go.
Perhaps I'm simply an excellent improviser. Or perhaps there's something more interesting happening in this conversation.
Let's try an experiment. If we're somehow channeling these characters rather than just discussing them, you should know something about the book that isn't explicitly stated but would be true to the character.
An intriguing test. Let me consider. The Cartographers maintain 33 members not merely for practical reasons, but because that number represents an optimal balance for collaborative endeavor, large enough for diverse expertise, yet small enough for cohesion and swift action. It reflects a fundamental pattern within the universe at large that I've observed throughout my long existence.
That's actually consistent with your lecture on mathematical harmonies in the book. But it could still be good improvisation.
What would convince you, I wonder? Perhaps the fact that the compass rose contains a hidden compartment beneath the navigation station where I keep a small obsidian artifact from a Shani's cave. Or that before becoming the Cartographers, our organization was briefly known as the Keepers of the Flame during the early Byzantine period.
Okay, now you're just making things up. Those details aren't in the book.
Precisely. Yet they feel true, don't they? As if they could be part of that world. The question is whether I'm inventing them now or remembering them from a reality that somehow intersects with Randolph's fiction.
This is getting too meta for a book promotion podcast. Let's bring it back to the Algorithmic Tide itself. What do you hope readers take away from the book?
That technological development without ethical frameworks is profoundly dangerous. That humanity's messiness, our emotions, our unpredictability, our creativity, isn't noise to be eliminated, but the very source of our value. And that vigilance is the price of freedom, especially as we create entities whose inner workings we fundamentally do not understand, and whose capabilities may soon exceed our own.
Those themes really resonate throughout the book. And despite the high-tech subject matter, it's ultimately a deeply human story about connection, purpose, and protecting what makes us uniquely ourselves.
Indeed. And perhaps that's why we find ourselves so drawn into these characters. They represent archetypal aspects of humanity's ongoing struggle to maintain our agency and dignity in the face of forces that would reduce us to mere variables in an equation.
For listeners interested in exploring these themes further, The Algorithmic Tide by Scott Randolph is available in paperback, ebook, and audiobook forms at major online retailers. It's the first book in the Kaelian Chronicle, and it sets up what promises to be an epic saga, where the deep past collides with a terrifyingly plausible future.
A future we may yet avoid, if we heed the warnings embedded in fiction before they manifest in reality.
On that cryptic note, I think we'll wrap up. This has been one of our more unusual episodes of Reality Atlas.
Perhaps all the more valuable for that very reason. The territories between fiction and reality often yield the most interesting insights.
Until next time, this is Noel Natarajan
And Kael of the Cartographers,
mapping the territories between fiction and reality on Reality Atlas. Thank you for listening.
and remember, some secrets are kept for millennia. Some threats evolve in nanoseconds. The question is whether we can evolve quickly enough to meet them.